it is official, I guess, at this point. Spider-Man is now back in the MCU. It looked like it wasn't going to happen, and it looked like Marvel and Sony, Disney and Sony had really split on this issue, and this wasn't going to get sorted out. Spider-Man was going to go off and be in the Venomverse and have Venom and Spider-Man be in films together, and he'd never be in the MCU again. But as has somehow happened once more, in terms of movie studios, they're breaking the system completely, and Spider-Man is again in the MCU. Now, Kevin Feige has come out with a statement, probably the most important statement of all of this stuff, and his statement has said, I'm going to read it to you right now, I'm thrilled that Spidey's journey in the MCU will continue, and that I and all of us at Marvel Studios are very excited that we get to keep working on it. Feige said in a statement, Spider-Man is a powerful icon and hero whose story crosses all ages and audiences around the globe. He is genuinely, in terms of IP, probably in the top 3 most popular heroes over the past, 60 years, since comic books existed. So he is very, very key to them. He also happens to be the only hero with the superpower to cross cinematic universes. So as Sony continues to develop their own Spideyverse, you never know what surprises the future might hold. Now, I think I may have said this before, somewhere down maybe 10 videos ago when I was talking about Spider-Man in the MCU. Whenever there was a trailer for Spider-Man Far From Home or Homecoming or anything like that. I think the deal that Sony and Marvel have done is genuinely for one more film. I think it's for one more film, and I think at that point they will split off from each other. I think the next Spider-Man film will be the last one in the MCU, and at the end of that film, Spidey will in some way go into the multiverse or the Spider-Verse, and from there be swept into a Venom timeline and be in that universe from now on. I think that's probably likely. That way, if one day Marvel decides and Sony decide they want to work together again and they want Venom and Spider-Man to be in the MCU, because Venom made a shit ton of money as well, then Marvel can let Sony build out that franchise however they want. And if they like the way it's going and Sony's happy with it, they can come back together again and make a giant team-up film again. But I think, really, I can't see from where they were why they would sign another 5-picture deal, where Sony was, why they would sign another 5-picture deal with Marvel if Marvel's terms were so ridiculous. Because apparently that's what it was. Disney wanted to take more and more of the slice in terms of the production, and Sony didn't really want that because that's where the film studio made a lot of money. And so because of that, I do feel this new deal is to tie up the Spider-Man story in the MCU, and either at the end of that to kill him off, or, as I said, to put him into the Venom timeline through the Spider-Verse, and then maybe one day bring them back if they so choose to. But that's just my opinion. I think that makes sense in terms of where the studios were butting heads before, just to give a close to Tom Holland in the MCU and make it a really great last film, especially with how, Homecoming, Far From Home ended, it was really ridiculous how it ended, with J.K. Simmons acting like a certain right-wing newscaster, and it was genuinely so funny seeing him do a national emergency type breaking news in New York, and then revealing Spider-Man's real name. It was absolutely out of the blue. I didn't expect it. I don't think anyone thought it. But that was one of the biggest cheers for the entire film, was when J.K. Simmons came on as J. Jonah Jameson at the end. So I think there is a chance, obviously, that Tom Holland will stay in the MCU for the next 5, 6, 7 years, for the next 3 or 4 films. But I think more likely out of the 2 options is that he will no longer be in the MCU after he finishes off this Spider-Man trilogy, and then we'll be in the Tom Hardy Venomverse, because apparently they want to do a couple of films there. Black Cat Silver Sable. The Spider-Man does have a ton of very, very good characters. You know, outside of Batman, he's probably got some of the best villains in general in comic history, and even the best subsidy heroes even. So yeah, I can see that being the case. And there's such a plethora of options to go in terms of story for the next Spider-Man film in the MCU and then after. So yeah, I would say I expect one more film with Tom Holland in the MCU for the time being, and then for him to shift over and maybe come back in the future. But that's true. Those are just my thoughts, at least. Everyone is very, very happy with this news, obviously, because Holland's portrayal of Spider-Man is generally everyone's most loved. In terms of Spider-Man and Peter Parker put together, I think he is the best. I still think Tobey Maguire is the best Peter Parker we've had, genuinely. I think he just embodied that in a very unique way. People don't like Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man, but I thought his Spider-Man was actually pretty fun. It was quippy, and I think Tom Holland's taken a bit of that and a bit of Tobey Maguire and himself and made this amalgam here, which has worked so far. So I think he does a really good job. I just don't think that the Spider-Man films overall, for me, have been some of the best films in the MCU. They're just pretty average, you know? I wouldn't say Spider-Man Far From Home or Homecoming are in my two favourite Spider-Man films. Spider-Man 1 and 2 are definitely my favourite Spider-Man films. But anyway, guys, if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel down there. If you didn't, Spider-Man himself will come after you, web you up. He'll do some things to you, man. Imagine if Spider-Man decided to go rogue. It would be sticky. It would be a sticky situation. You don't want that. You really don't, so just subscribe anyway to avoid that. I've been the Ranger of the Comic. You have been great. I'll see you next time. Skadoosh.